Somebody confirm they've gotten the, okay, there it is. Thank you so much. All right. Top of the order here in our list in this meeting right now. And again, welcome everybody. Let's go ahead and start with Andrea. If you could just introduce yourself, tell everybody where you're from and maybe what your sizzle is for being a part of this advisory board.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Andrea Kittleson. I am at Rockwell Automation down in Milwaukee. I'm the Global Information Security and I do physical security as well. I'm Training and Communications Manager. And I bleed blue. I have a bachelor's and master's from Stout. So rock on Stout. And I was so glad to see you guys in the headlines for smart manufacturing. Woohoo!
All right. Well, thank you very much, Andrea. That's a good way to start. Some enthusiasm there. Next up here, Sara Anger.
All right. I'm Sara Anger. I work Stout Online, and my main role is to serve the program and the online students.
All right, thank you, Sara. Moving down the list here, Tyler Bayton. All right, well, Tyler is here. It sounds like Tyler, your mic might be muted. Try that one and see if that one works. All right, he may be having some technical issues. We will move along. Next up, Brian Bechtold.
Hey, I'm Brian Bechtold. I'm a friend of the program. I know Evan and Laura and enjoy their company. I am the president of SVA Consulting and the chairman of the board of the SVA companies in Madison, Wisconsin.
All right, thank you, Brian. Moving down the list, Greg Brote, please.
Good morning. I'm an instructor at WITC and trying to build and keep good student transfer relations and a past grad.
All right, thank you, Greg. Moving on to Dave Jakubowski, and I think I might have said that right for the first time, Dave. Did I? I think we have a muted microphone situation again, Dave. Try again.
There you go. How's that?
That's better.
I was going to say that was the first time you got it correct in about 5.5 years. Good morning, everybody. My name is Dave Jakubowski, a graduate of the ICT program in 2019. I work at organization Skooks, which is a relatively young global learning management employee development organization. And I've been with them for just about 10.5 months, almost 11 months. And with recently graduating, wanted to be a part of the advisory board to give back. So thank you guys for giving me the opportunity.
All right, thank you, Dave. And I'm glad I got the name right. I know how that can be injuring to a person if they hear their name pronounced wrong over many years. Moving on. Yeah. Dan Dunbar.
Hi, I'm Dan Dunbar. I'm the Deputy CIO at UW-Stout. I'm a graduate of the program many years ago when it had different names. But I work at the university and I work with the faculty in the program.
All right, thank you, Dan. Moving on to James Folkowski. James.
Good morning. I'm a 3-time grad from Stout, so I've got a bachelor's and 2 masters from here. My current position is data analyst and institutional researcher for enrollment retention services. And I'm also very involved in the ICT 405, 605 courses as the client for those courses.
All right, James, thank you so much. Mark Fenton.
Hey everybody, Mark Fenton. I'm the Business Administration Program Director and have a number of students in the program to get a minor in business. And I was telling Evan yesterday via email, this is one of my furlough days, so I'll be in for a while, but not for very long. But I wanted to see how things get going, and good morning, everybody.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate you being here. Thank you. Next up, Ben Frensky.
Hi, I'm Dr. Ben Fransky. I am a faculty member at Inver Hills Community College in Inver Grove Heights. So we, of course, are interested in student transfer and also a former graduate of Stout.
All right, Ben, thank you. Next up, Peter Galante.
Good morning. I hope you can hear me. I've been having all kinds of issues with our technology this morning. I'm a professor of the video production program in the department and program director. So I'm not directly related to the program. I'm sort of just on the side.
All right, Peter, thank you. Moving on down the list, Brian Goodman.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Brian, and I'm new to the instructional academic staff at Stout. I just started this past fall after retiring from CVTC in Eau Claire after 35 years in their IT network specialist program. And I'm also a graduate of UW-Stout, so it's nice to be on the other side of the podium this fall.
Yes, Brian, thank you so much. I'm glad you're here. Next up, Renee Gunderson. Renee.
Good morning, everyone. I teach in the CNIT and the ICT program, so that's sort of my role here.
All right, thank you, Renee. Justin Hefner.
I think Justin is muted.
Actually, he's not, but
I am not. I was double muted. Just to be extra careful. Justin Hafner, I'm a network automation engineer for Medtronic, also a Stout grad.
All right, thank you, Justin. Chris Isaacson.
Good morning. I'm Chris Isaacson, and I am the program director kind of for the I guess sister or cousin program, Digital Marketing Technologies.
All right, thank you. Next up in the list, I don't know if I want to try this last name. I see Deb, and it starts with K.
Go for it. Okay, it's Kutrib.
Darn.
We were so close. Just gotta flip those I's and E's. Anyway, my name is Deb Kutrib. Happy to see all of you today. This is my first meeting. I'm an associate dean at WITC up on the Rice Lake campus. And like Greg said, I'm also interested in learning more about transfer.
Thank you, Deb, and it's nice to meet you with audio and video for the first time.
It's always good.
Yeah, it is. Kyle Lowenhagen.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for inviting me today. I'm the program director for the IT software developer program at Chippewa Valley Technical College. Also a graduate from the master's program of ICT. And I believe I worked with Len back in 2006 and 7 when he was developing the BS ICT program. About 30% of our students from the CVTC go on for their bachelor's, and quite a few of them do look at the BS ICT program. So thanks. Nice to see all of you today.
Thank you, Kyle. It's interesting you bring up Len Bogner. Len was the original program director for ICT. I actually talked with him a little earlier in the year, and it just tells me that I've been at UW-Stout for a while. And you've probably been where you're at for a while, too.
That's correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Monica Bunch.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Cypher Consulting. I'm president of the Cypher. We are a Salesforce partner. We do systems integrations for businesses to set up marketing, sales, and customer support service solutions. And we also work with the ICT program for the capstones as a subject matter expert. And we've really enjoyed working with the students this year.
Yes, and we've appreciated having Cypher Consulting, you and Beverly assisting in this real experience. So thank you, Monica.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
You bet. Deb Mosey. Deb.
Good morning, everybody. I work in the Advisement Center here at Stout. My name is Deb Mosey, and I'm the advisor for the first-year students in the on-campus ICT program.
Thank you, Deb. Tim Nagel.
Morning, everyone. I am an Associate General Counsel at U.S. Bank, headquartered in Minneapolis. I support the Chief Analytics Officer, the Chief Data Officer, and the Chief Marketing Officer for digital initiatives. So what Stout does is of great interest to me. So thanks for including me, Evan.
You bet, Tim. Glad you're here. Next on the list, Oscar.
Hello, everyone. Can you guys hear me? Yes. Okay. I'm Oscar Ocampo. I'm the lead instructor for ICT 103. I'm also a graduate. I graduated with my master's in ICT. Not too long ago, but yes.
Thanks, Oscar. All right. Next on the list, Eric. Oh boy. Peterson.
It's pretty close. It's Peterson.
Okay.
So I'm one of the IT instructors at WITC as well on the New Richmond campus. Although I do actually live in Menominee, close to Stout. I graduated from Stout as well, also when it was a different name. So.
Well, hold on. You graduated when Stout had a different name? How old are you?
No, the program.
Oh,
back when it was
okay.
telecommunications.
All right, got it. All right. Cami, you're up.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Cami Peterson. I am an instructor here. And of course, my dogs like to make an appearance just when I'm speaking. They were just fine before that. I'm an instructor here at Stout. I do teach some classes in the digital marketing as well as the ICT bachelor's program. And this semester I'll be doing one of the classes in the master's program, and I'm very excited about that. I am a WITC graduate, so I can say that, as well as a graduate in the bachelor's and master's degrees here at Stout. So I bleed blue as well.
All right, Cami.
Glad to be here.
Yes, and thank you. Next up, Michael Pinch. Michael.
Good morning. Hey, Evan, how are you? Michael Pinch here, a partner at Wipfli, and Wipfli is a accounting firm and technology consultancy, about 2,500 people, US, and with probably a few hundred people now in India as well. I'm a partner and CIO within the firm and oversee some of the technology consulting work that we do for clients. I'm living in Chippewa Falls, working out of our Eau Claire office, and am a fan of the program and hopeful employer of future students as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Good to see you. Moving on down the list, Deanna Schultz. And no, Laura, I did purposely skip you, Laura. We're going to be talking a lot, the two of us today, so you'll get your chance. Deanna.
Hi, everyone. Deanna Schultz. I'm the program director for the Master of Science in Current Technical Education, and one of the ICT courses, the Technology Futures, is a requirement in our program. So I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, Deanna. Next up, Renee Sertic. Renee.
Good morning, everyone. I am faculty coming out of the operations management area. I'm also program director of management program, an online program. I'm a heavy collaborator with this particular group. Our students take ICT. We utilize a couple of other courses and are looking at some future collaborations with the program as well.
Thank you, Renee. Next up is Joe Wetzel. Joe.
Hey everyone, I'm Joe Wetzel. I am a department chair, Fox Valley Tech. Can you guys hear me? Okay, good. So basically, a department chair for IT instruction. Basically, I'm here just to make sure that our programs are aligned, like to be a feeder, so that way we can find opportunities for students to transfer. Currently taking classes at Stout again as well.
All right, thank you, Joe. And last but not least, Matt Wysocki. Matt.
Hi, everyone. Matt Wysocki. I'm a program assistant with the Communication Technologies and Communication Studies Department.
All right, thank you, Matt. Well, that's everybody that is on my list. And again, it's nice to get the perspective of the wide range of individuals that are interested in supporting both the Bachelor's of Science and the Master's of Science in ICT. So we do thank you for being here today, and we appreciate your support, whatever means that is. Well, oh, getting an echo. Tim, I think your microphone might be open. That's okay. Let's see. All right, so Laura, let's go ahead and get into the first bit of business, and that's the state of the university at this point. I have talked to a number of you since March, in particular since the pandemic became very real for us and we had to change operations. A number of you have communicated with me how your teaching and learning practices have changed. And a number of you have also talked about how your businesses have changed. And I find that very interesting. And I'd like to essentially, with the 30 minutes that we've left open for this particular part, it would be nice to see if we have some similarities and maybe close some of the areas that we assume, but now we have an opportunity to know what the realities are. And so with that being said, the state of our university, business has changed here at UW-Stout. It is daunting to consider that we started all of our planning for where we are right now in early March, just prior to spring break. It's a blur. It seems like all the days have kind of mishmashed together, and it's startling to consider that. I have recognized as I continue to get older, hopefully more mature and wiser, that time does have a tendency to move quite quickly the older you get. But this year has been this kind of a smear of time and a kind of a nightmarish kind of thing to deal with. Where are we as a university? Well, UW-Stout has been able to stay open. It has been modified, and I will by no means say that we've been able to create something that is a perfect, safe environment for everybody that comes here. We've had to deal with the COVID virus. We have had students that have been out. We've had quarantines. We've had bubbles where suddenly there's a flare-up. We've had issues where students, you know, in a class of 25 started out that way, and next thing you know, mid-semester, there's 5 students left. There's plenty of instructors in here who could tell you that it has been a different level of engagement with their students. It's usually, you know, it's usually pretty draining anyways. You know, people think that, you know, those summers off are just kind of a perk. They are, but in a lot of cases, it's recovery to get yourself back to, okay, I'm ready to do this again. And quite honestly, I kind of wonder out loud as to whether anybody has really been able to get back to a point of, I'm gassed up and I'm ready to go again. So we've been able to continue. We have, unfortunately, with this pandemic, we also have a financial issue where we are being asked to reconsider how we do business. And we have lots of conflicting values of what that should be. But it all comes down to one thing: unless people are wanting to work for free, money is involved in this, our funding. Our numbers, at least at this point for our programs, are stable. And I'm talking about BS ICT and MS ICT, and that's good. However, that isn't the story across the greater university. That's not the story in the UW system. That's not the story for higher education right now. Some of our freshmen that came in this fall, I think had an awful experience in many cases. This wasn't your normal, let's go to college, let's go to the university. I've heard stories of, okay, you're living in a dorm room, which is kind of similar to a prison cell, and then the roommate gets COVID or somebody gets quarantined, and it just becomes this terrible solitary confinement kind of experience. It is not totally that way for everybody, but And again, for me, I don't see exactly those specific things. I haven't visited a dorm in years, but I've heard stories. It's been very, very much a struggle. And I think some of our students are deciding that maybe it's an okay idea to take the spring off. So right now, with all of our problems, we have an enrollment dip, which I can tell you based on our numbers for next fall, maybe the rebound of that. And the rebound of that is another issue. I mean, it's good. It's good when you have a lot of people in, but in this case, it's like we have to struggle to survive now for this, you know, this big bounce that is looking, at least at this point, you know, it's December, it's not September yet, but a rebound effect as well. And again, let's look at all our struggles that we have trying to make and come to a point of this is how we do business moving forward. So it's a time of change. And I think I'm going to stop talking here just for a minute and ask Laura if she'd like to interject her perspective before we actually just kind of open it up and talk a bit about this related to the state of the university.
Well, you know me, give me a chance to talk and I'll I'll probably take you up on that. I'm sharing my screen. I believe that can be seen. Just hang on. I just wanted to, I just prepared a couple of, hang on, there we go, quick slides to share on this campus reorg that we're currently under. It comes from the top down. This was the chancellor's charge. Looking to, because we do have to have a different way of doing business. I totally believe that there's lots of change yet to happen. I also wanted to share that as we go into this, there was listening sessions, and I was, I guess, pleased to see the key themes of things like the graduate school, and I'm being very myopic in my vision for the master's program. That becomes part of it. I was also pleased that customized programming, graduate programming really becomes a strong area for growth. And I think that was a little bit in the message board that I think we can seize this as we all want to do, right? It's not a problem, it's an opportunity. And so looking at structure, flexibility, and the model, looking at more of these things that look for collaboration, cross-disciplinary, to really become a more flexible and dynamic structure. And so I think that the campus reorg is on the right track in terms of research. Some of the research that I've done talks about a scenario of the future as my university, meaning it's customized and personalized. And I think that universities have to embrace this change. And so it's not, change is hard. There's lots of resistance, even from people who want it. It still is scary and hard. And so I think that in general, they're looking to do more flatlining to reduce the kind of administrative structure part of it. And the best part that I see in the proposal that's going on that is to take all of the graduate programs and house them together, to take them out of departments and to bring them all together as graduate programs. And so we can talk more about that, but that's kind of my 2 cents, just to kind of bring to light that, nothing's been decided, but I think there are some areas of focus and emphasis. And I believe in this, it's a great term, integrative experiential hub. Who doesn't want to be a part of that? I want to be a part of that. So just a little kind of background and perspective on some of those things driving the change.
All right. So with that being said, I know you've all been a part of this pandemic and this change time as well. What are some of your thoughts right now related to what you've had to experience since the world changed for us back in March? Or are we the only ones that have dealt with this? Thanks, Brian.
I would agree. At Fox Valley Technical College, we have seen many of the things that you have mentioned at Stout. The transition online has been difficult for some students, even though I think we are well suited to work in this environment, being in IT. Enrollments are a little low with students thinking to take a semester off until we return back to normal, if we ever will.
All right, thank you, Tyler. Brian, what about your part of the world?
And this is Brian Bechtold. You're at, yeah. It's interesting. I think I think the way you worked coming into the pandemic shaped largely how you reacted to the pandemic. So for me personally and my group, we were in a highly virtual world to begin with. And it's interesting. I'll give a little bit of background, but so I'm actually somebody who's been a consumer of higher education through virtual format for quite some time. So I have a master's from Michigan State that I got virtually, and then I have a doctorate from USC that I got virtually as well. And so I was very familiar with that virtual world around graduate studies, and found it really helpful because it gave me reach into not just simply great universities, but lots of different people from lots of different places. So I took it as a positive thing. And Evan and I have had conversations about that in the past. From a work perspective, we have lots of clientele on the coast, and so we had already sort of slowed down travel to use virtual technologies and invested pretty heavily in a video footprint in our office space. And so we were delivering that way. Now we've moved to home offices, out of those offices, and that's been a change for some as they struggled with being able to be focused in those home environments. And I would say that focus is probably the most disruptive thing we've seen. But just one other thing I would add, it's interesting. My son is 24, and he is a graduate assistant at San Jose State. And they were their first school to move online. And he's actually here, doing his coursework and teaching from Madison. I would say he's struggling much more with not being able to be on campus, not being able to immerse, not being able to, connect with the college experience. So what I saw as a benefit in kind of the reach of higher education coming to me, he sees this as a detriment because he can't get the experience of being in San Jose and everything Silicon Valley has to offer for him. So it's all how you look at it, I think, in your perspective coming into it and the way you were used to working, sort of, at least in my experience, has shaped the way you've been able to move through it.
All right, thank you, Brian. Other thoughts related to change in our world?
Evan, I can talk a little bit from the 2-year perspective as well. So Inver Hills decided very early on we weren't going to even attempt to come back in the spring, and then before the end of the spring semester made the call for the fall, and then before the beginning of the fall semester made the call for this coming spring to be online. And privately to faculty, we were told even to plan for the likelihood of being online next fall. I think it's an easier transition for 2-year colleges to make, particularly in programs like the one that I operate in. At least half of our students are working full-time in the field. And so most of our classes tend to be evening classes or really night classes anyway. And so for our students, that usually looks like a class that goes from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. because of the lab time that's required. And truthfully, if you work a full day of work and then you are going to go to class from 6 to 10 p.m., you're pretty exhausted at the end of that. And so I think for our students, at least those who are working, they actually prefer the online format that we went to, which is a hybrid online format. So the students individually check in with me for about 20 minutes a piece once a week, and then everything else is done asynchronously. So they can kind of spread the workload out a little bit. So those students who work, I think, find that to be beneficial to them. I think where I've seen probably the biggest challenges for us are with incoming traditional students who would be taking a full load of classes. You know, in an online class is just a different environment, kind of to some of the points that have been brought up before. If you're not prepared for that kind of self-motivation that an online course requires, even with checking in regularly with an instructor to kind of assess progress and things, it is just very much easier to slip behind. And so, that's a challenge for people. So we've kind of seen it both ways. Overall, our college is in a pretty good place. We've had an overall college decline of enrollment about 5%, which was the lowest of any min-state college in the metro area. So and in our program, we've seen like maybe 1% down or something like that. So overall, that hasn't been too much of an issue. For personally, the biggest issue has been, we're very lab heavy, and making those labs work remotely is the biggest challenge that I'd say we've had.
Thank you, Ben. Yeah, that's interesting. In our computer networking area, this has been an impetus to look at different ways of doing business in that space. And the cool thing is, at least in that area, these people, our faculty and staff, have been receptive to look into that, though extremely time consuming. I mean, it's like it's already consuming enough to do business as usual, much less changing how you operate while doing business as usual. So thank you. I see a hand up, Chris, so you have the floor. And everybody else, if you wanted to use the raise hand icon as a way to get yourself in the queue, please do. Chris, please.
Hi, I just wanted to give just a perspective from just a different program here at Stout. As I teach both what would normally be face-to-face as well as normal online classes, I see that from the instructor's point of view, that one thing I've been really, truly amazed with is the number of students who are in the campus-based student who I am teaching synchronously online this semester, that they have been really amazing, which surprised me. I was expecting them to tune out and that kind of the attention to drop, not just during the sessions, but over the course of the semester. And they have stepped it up. It's been pretty amazing. I have really good, solid attendance. They've been making solid use of the Teams chat feature too in responding, as well as, audio, video. And the work that I've seen is actually better than, I say that with a question mark, because I'm wondering if they have fewer distractions because they're just not allowed to go out and socialize. And the other side of that is our online students that expect to be online, and they are also doing well. I expected nothing less there, but one of the things that I, as an instructor, have always had to back up is going, this group of students has always opted to be online, going to an earlier point of choosing that as your mode. But as an instructor, I do still have to recognize many of them now have kids at home and they're trying to do remote online learning with their kids, or they've chosen to homeschool their kids. And if they have a spouse or partner that's at home, they might all be working from home, trying to juggle computers and bandwidth. So I've still been working to be very flexible with them. Hopefully they're working to be flexible with me as well, as as I work to juggle through these things. And then just to end on the positive note, so Evan talked about a downturn in enrollment for this spring. From the DMT perspective, our enrollment too we're about steady, I think. But for next fall, we are already starting to show some really good numbers. And I don't know if that is an optimism over maybe this will be getting back to some sense of normal. But I'm going to try and hold on and hope that it's going to be a good thing come this fall. So that's my 2 cents.
All right, thanks, Chris. A bunch of people started raising their hands after that. I don't know who is up, but I think, Tim, you might be up. So why don't you go with it?
Thanks, Evan. Just kind of the view from the corporate world at the bank, and generally what I'm hearing is that once there's a return to normal routine, whatever that is, it's going to be much more distributed than it was now for a couple of reasons. We're looking at probably 20% will not be in the office, and they haven't been previous to the pandemic. 20% will have to be because of the function they serve. And then the middle 60% will do it on sort of a rotating or occasional basis. So we're also seeing that in the corporate world, there could be savings potentially if it's a more distributed workforce. And we're also seeing, and I'm experiencing this personally, that I'm getting used to it, and people are getting used to it. The online, the shared, the virtual environment, and that the use of Teams or WebEx or Zoom or whatever it is, where you can all look at the same document as you would anyway, or if it's one-to-one, you can actively share a document so you're both looking at it or making changes or doing whatever. So I think people are being forced to adjust. And so I would encourage, and I echo a lot of what James said on the chat, look at what the other side's going to look like. And I think for a place like Stout, and especially in the technology program, that may be where your corporate clients are going anyway, as far as comfortable in the distributed environment, working that way. And to me, technology is the most amenable to that, as opposed to like marketing or social sciences or something like that. I mean, it's tough now, but like I said, everybody's adjusting, everybody's having to adjust. So I'm glad that you're adjusting as well, but I would hope that you can take advantage of this on the other side.
Thank you, Tim. I want to just say that despite the fact that we have our struggles, like this has been a struggle for everyone, I think we were prepared to engage in this. I think largely, again, with the BS ICT and MS ICT, by very nature, MS ICT is a fully online program. The things that I think we deal with in those settings, probably it's more so on our clientele and the struggles they've had to deal with versus what we potentially deal with as far as delivering quality curriculum. Justin or Deb, I did not see who was first, so I'm just going to eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and Justin, you're the one.
Well, thank you. Tim, I also just wanted to give a corporate perspective, right? So we saw things at Medtronic happen at speeds never before. Money was spent and things were approved. Bureaucracy was completely moved to the side. And the IT staff became the highlight right away in the beginning of the pandemic. So I want to give that kind of encouragement to the students that you're teaching, the skill sets that they're going to need. That was paramount at the beginning of this pandemic, spinning up new VPN, monitoring everything that had to do with remote work. And so yeah, and also what Tim said about the bank, Medtronic is also doing the same thing. We've, from a real estate perspective, we've always planned for 70% occupancy in a building. Those numbers are now down to 50%. Obviously, Medtronic being manufacturing as well as having a bunch of professional staff, it's different. So the manufacturing has always been able to be in, and those had those challenges. But the professional staff, yeah, people have kind of hit their groove. We've always, since this started, we've always been doing, virtual happy hours and making sure that team building is still present in this virtual world. So making sure that everyone is, well, you're seeing a lot more personality. So just humanity. I was multitasking in a meeting just yesterday. So I had my video on and I was multitasking. Somebody pinged me afterward. Hey, how you doing? You looked a little bit not your chipper self. So I mean, just that humanity has really increased in are you doing okay kind of thing. But I really wanted to give that feedback of the core skill set that Stout is teaching, right? Is going to be continues to be in demand and is really the skill set that is asked for in this kind of environment.
Thank you, Justin. You know, it's interesting you're talking about the human element. Just thinking about myself, I am by nature somebody who can engage with a lot of people at different levels, but I am also a quiet person where I'd like to just get lost. Like I like to fish and I trout fish. So for me, I'll go find a little hole in some valley and get lost because that's kind of who I am, just to kind of simmer down. But I tell you what, I think there's a lot of parties being planned for what quote normal might be in the future, but also, you know, the virtual connections with people are becoming more important. We're kind of finding that we do need people. Isn't that interesting? So thank you. Deb and then Mark.
All right, thanks. I just have a few points to make. Some of them are piggybacking on other people's really good comments. But at WITC, we scheduled all of our classes at the start of this. I would say for June is when we really planned out what was happening for the fall. And, you know, most of the classes, a lot of them can be taught online, but again, we're a tech college, so a lot of it has hands-on components. And so we really tried to limit the amount of people on campus pretty significantly. Our IT instructors really stepped forward and made some amazing headway. They can speak to that if they want, but allowing students to have that in-person sort of hands-on environment remotely. And I think that worked really well. Our enrollments are down, of course, like many other schools. And I think that's an opportunity for the IT programs. I mean, since so much of this stuff can be done online, I think we're, you know, we have a marketing opportunity. We don't have, you know, our instructors, Benjamin mentioned that he's meeting with his students like in a hybrid fashion. I don't know of anything formally that's been done like that, but I know some instructors have been doing that. In fact, in order to keep student success levels up, there's been a lot of one-on-one meetings with students, so I think that's a best practice in some situations. There seems to have been an overall fatigue in the last probably 4 weeks with the students just, I don't know, and that's all programs, that's not just IT, but just the kind of tuning out a little bit more. And it's difficult, you know, I mean, like it's working for me to work from home. My husband leaves, he goes to work, I don't have any kids at home. It's not bad, you know, I can make a cappuccino if I want to walk in the next room, but everybody has a different situation. And I understand, you know, how difficult it can be if you've got 6 people in the house all vying for internet. So another thing that we're doing at our college starting in the spring is a course, a Blackboard course offered for students on how to be an online student. And part of it is the technology piece, and then part of it also is the organizational piece that involves. Time is a huge part of that, how to schedule your time, but also how to set up your own space. And I think also how to be, how to have the gumption amongst your own family members to say, I need time, I need a space. You know, and to vouch for yourself and to really, you know, so if we can say, this is what you need to be successful, perhaps they'll have a greater chance. Some of our nursing instructors use Respondus to proctor their tests. And when they get tagged, they can watch the videos. And one of the instructors was telling me that, you know, it was like a Fellini movie. The student was taking the test in like a kitchen island. People were all around her. She was answering questions. There was talking going on. There might have been a fight, you know, with the kids. And here she is supposed to be, you know, of course she got flagged, you know, but she needs to have the tools to know that you really need to change that as much as possible. So that's kind of where we're at.
All right, thank you, Deb, for sharing. You know, that one thing I'm going to jump on right there, the online student skills to be able to be successful in that environment is a real thing. We know that generally speaking, the freshmen that came to this university were, at least they got some experience in the spring as seniors in high school, but they just based on habit, just really have not had to experience that kind of space. Our program has known that for years, that it takes time for those kind of skills and the responsibility aspect to come up and do it well. And then on the other side too, we can't forget the instructors who are designing those spaces. I know that our campus did as what they could with the time and resource they had to be able to help people ramp up. But I tell you, that takes time. And I think some of the comments we've gotten, you know, maybe not so much in our program because we've been doing this a long time and we have a different audience, but you know, some of the comments are, this one I've heard often, do I get to pay less tuition for an online class? Because the valuation of an online class versus a face-to-face class are so much different. And I can see in certain situations where that's true. Like if you really shouldn't be online with your instructional practice, then online is just disingenuous. So anyways, Mark, I see your hand, go.
Yeah, Evan, thank you. Just a couple of quick points. The first one regarding enrollments. Chris had mentioned enrollments in your program, you know, look pretty good for next fall. And actually, for a lot of them do, for my program in business, we're up like 110 more this year. For fall, I admit some were this time last year, which, you know, I'm happy about. But, you know, there can be some metrics there. Students who didn't go to college this year, or their parents or themselves kept themselves out, or for whatever reason. I think one of the key metrics is going to be fall of 2022 in terms of seeing what enrollments are going to be like. You know, does that higher number hold up, or does it drop back a little bit to be more realistic with college, or rather, I'm sorry, with high school graduates? So that's something I think all programs need to be aware of. And then one other thing, Evan, you had indicated that you know, you like your private time and you like to go trout fishing, but anybody ever asks you, where do you go trout fishing? Your answer always is the water on Earth. And that doesn't do anybody any damn good, Evan, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, correct,
Thank
Mark.
you.
You are correct. Thanks for sharing, Mark, and yes, it's Earth, so figure it out. Joe, go.
So I just wanted to quick jump in and at Fox Valley Tech, so we kind of transitioned to it fairly easily just because IT really had our infrastructure locked down pretty tight. So everything we did hands-on, we found ways to push that into a virtual infrastructure. So the students always use virtual machines. We already had like this hybrid in-person anywhere model set up for students, but students never really embraced that model. So when the pandemic hit, we kind of transitioned all of the classroom classes into the hybrid model. So one benefit in this is students are getting exposure to the hybrid model where before they were very hesitant. The other thing that I just wanted to kind of reiterate, a bunch of people are saying, I mean, the fatigue is real. I met with my team. I know they're burnt out. I know the students I'm seeing issues, you know, this semester. We started out extremely strong, and I think it was Deb, but somebody said, you know, the last 4 weeks have really been a huge drop off, and I'm concerned about that. And the other thing that's different is, I mean, if you have an office, this is nice, you know. I know it's just different, you know, it's a different environment, so everything's getting blurry now. Like it used to be so simple. I'd get text messages, I'd get emails, and I'd look at them, I'd know that they were there, but all the software that I used was at work, you know, so I would know, okay, I'm going to deal with that in the morning when I get to work. Now I'm working all the time. You know, I get something at, you know, 10 p.m. and it's like, I can just deal with it now so that we don't have to deal with it in the morning. So I don't have this feeling of not working, you know, it's like, so it's just a little bit different. And I know my staff is really kind of burning out as well. So the one thing that I did want to touch on as well is that a lot of the students are just like, I don't want to do this online, and just reiterating, hey, the world is changing, so a lot of the employers in our area at our advisory committee meeting were saying, the majority of their staff won't be returning to work. And one of the benefits with working remotely is their teams are expanding and they're hiring people from other states outside the district, so their pool of employees that they're hiring has gotten a lot larger. So these students are going to have to figure out how to embrace this new world, and most likely they're going to at some point be working in some online distributed teams. So I don't know. Yeah, so I kind of iterated a bunch of other points that other people have made, but yeah, it's different. So thanks.
All right, thank you, Joe. By the way, your space that looks cool. By the way, I think that's pretty neat. You bet. Dave, you're up. Go.
So just to kind of tie into what was just said about the change in the real world, we saw that in, excuse me, in our business overnight, meaning whether it be manufacturing, hospitality, any line of work went from come into the office to learn and train to we've got to figure out a way to do this online. So looking at what's going on in today's world from an educational standpoint, with everything either having to be online or in some type of hybrid form, that's going to happen as soon as they hit the real world as well. From employee onboarding to some types of sales training, whatever it may be, organizations are coming to us and saying, what can you do to help us get this online? One of the things that we like to talk about in the online LMS or employee development is we've seen our business pick up over this last time frame because everybody needs to move now from a in-person training to a more hybrid or online approach.
You know what? I think we've got some more hands up here, but just kind of tailing off what Dave said, I want to ask, and I'm going to get a blitz here of answers, but we've heard some students making decisions that based on our environment, even though we do have the opportunity to deliver an instructional setting, a learning environment, that they've decided that being out of school for a time was a good thing. When you folks in business and industry consider students that are opting out of school at this point, what is your thought about that?
Can you say that again, Evan?
Yes, I shall. Maybe I didn't say it right, or I was muted. I'm wondering what your opinions are, business and industry folks, when you think about hiring the talent that would come from a university like Stout or anywhere. What are your thoughts about students actually opting out of being in school for a time just for the sake of letting the pandemic kind of go away because they're not getting, quote, what they would consider to be the experience they want? How about that?
So my first thought on that is that if someone were to ask me, right, if a student were to ask me like advice or mentorship, my only thought is that they have to do what's right for them, right? So you first start out there saying, if that's what's right for you, then you can go ahead and do that. They're only delaying their own employment from, if I'm going to put my employer's hat on, right? So if a gap to wait it out and to wait until something is a little bit more comfortable, that's just especially Medtronic. Medtronic requires a 4-year degree. It's a heated topic at Medtronic. We want to hire people. A lot of people want to hire people that don't have a 4-year degree, but we have that HR stipulation. So if that's the decision that is theirs, they can do that, but they should know that it's just merely a delay for them to get employed at a company like Medtronic.
All right, thank you for that, Justin. Andrea, you're up, please.
Yeah, I think Justin started off with some really good advice. Like if that's what you need to do, then you need to make that right decision for yourself personally. But, you know, I think coming into an interview, if I was graduating in this pandemic era, you have some great groundwork to be talking firsthand about how flexible you have become, how diverse you have become, adaptability. I mean, those are all characteristics that employers are looking for because let's face it, we're in cybersecurity. Is there really ever a norm? Just when we think that there might be, it turns on a dime. So, you know, we're looking for folks who are adaptable and change agents. So my recommendation would be, how can I help you be successful? And you've got this. Let's do it together because there's no time like today to get it done.
All right, thank you. Yes. Other comments related to the topic at hand from anyone? We are about 15 minutes off of our schedule, which quite honestly, I don't think either Laura or I really mind because the conversation is pretty rich here. Does anybody want to chime in and say something that's on your mind?
I would add, I've had a few students make the comment that, oh, get used to it. This is the way we're going to work. So that's kind of a little different attitude I've seen from the student.
Well, that's encouraging to me, quite honestly. I mean, somebody has gotten to that person. Michael, I saw your hand up. It went down quick. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I think I might have hovered over it and it went right back down. But I've got 2 kids in college right now too, and I'm telling them keep their heads down and keep working through it. I mean, one's a junior and one's a freshman, and there's going to be a lot more like this. They see dad sitting in the basement all day long and dealing with it. And whether they want to be that or not is another question. But I mean, that's my advice to everybody is keep going. I think demographics wise, with baby boomers going out of the market and Gen Xers taking a bigger chunk, I mean, now's the time to get through the system. There's opportunities, and like was said already, this is the new way of working in a lot of ways. I mean, we're open to opportunities for people. We're hiring people right out of school and trusting them to work at their house, which we've never done before. We're shipping 200 laptops to accounting students across the U.S. to start work from home. That's how it's going to be. So get used to it, and the kids students can gain a lot from what they're learning in college right now.
Thank you, Michael. I see Dave is there. Dave, go. And then after that, Matt is going to jump in.
So I would give a different set of advice, just knowing where I came from. I got into the workforce without a college education and started at a low entry level software tester and worked my way through. And as I worked my way through, I realized what it was I wanted to go back to school for. So I would sit down with anybody, and I have sat down with somebody and said, you know what, if you don't think school is right for you right now, or you need to take some time off from it, always know that you can go back and finish it up. But if you've got a passion or a thought for something that you want to get into, knowing that you may end up starting at a lower level and having to work your way through, jump in and see if that's something that you like in the real working world. And if it is, then you know what to go back to school for and what to finish up. That's what I did. So I take a different approach to it, but knowing that school is going to be there and you can finish it up. So that's the advice I would give.
All right. Thank you, Dave. Matt.
Just want to follow up with a couple questions that have come in the chat here. One is from Dane. His question is, has anyone discussed individual instructor marketing and selling?
Hey, Dean, would you clarify that?
Yeah, I think the key here is, from what I'm seeing and hearing from the students, they already have a discussion out there going on about who their instructors are. You know, as I said in that same chat, The equalizer is the online education. Everyone's going to have the same tools, but you're not going to have the same teachers. So being able to market ourselves as the instructor for that particular class, I think is important, not just because it has a title. And I think if we're going to be teaching these classes with care and empathy with the students, especially to make the transitions, maybe there needs to be more marketing about who's actually teaching the class and why they might want to take that class at that particular university based on the instructor and the course, both.
This is Laura here. I'm going to jump in on that with Dane. I think that's what I struggle with as well for graduate online education. It's online. So why get your online degree at Stout? You can get an online degree in, pick a number, hundreds and hundreds of places. And I think we have to look at what differentiates us. And it can be instructors. I've thought about, things that, that we've got the flexibility that we kind of create a graduate club, right? And you have to be a member. And with that, you could get access to, experts and professionals and webinars and things that nobody else gets to because you're a part of the Stout Graduate Club. And I think things like that, which then really just maximizes the connections and expertise of instructors. And so I absolutely agree with you that we have to look at how we can differentiate, and because online is like you said, a great equalizer. So why Stout online? I think we have to answer that better.
Yeah, Dane and I have had these conversations before about what is the message that we want to put forward to any of our students. And the word that Dane used was a 4-letter word called care. And it's the human element. And certainly in this season, we're certainly finding that being limited in contact with people, we're finding we need each other. So that caring part, I think, I don't even like to use the word it's valid, like we've measured it out and it's a great criteria. It's a human thing. It really is. And it does make a difference. For those of us who've been on the online teaching and learning space for quite a while, we understand that the degree to which we can create a community and have people interacting with each other versus just icons that are kind of lurking in the shadows, there's something to that. Matt, did you have some other questions?
There is another one from Eric Peterson. I would be curious if the employers have any thoughts on the communications and interpersonal skills students learn or do not learn when they are completely online.
Anyone want to wrestle with that one?
Matt, can you say that again? Can you reframe that again?
I would be curious if the employers, assume the employers who are in the room, have any thoughts on the communications and interpersonal skills students learn or do not learn when they are completely online.
Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, my first thought on it is I think it was a while back, right, on this advisory board, we brought up a conversation about removing public speaking. I don't know if it was 5 or maybe even a little bit greater than 5 years ago, we had that topic brought up in this advisory board, and we voted it down, right? And the main consensus is that having a technologist that can do all of the tech savvy things and get things done is important. Also, the ability, half of the battle is usually presenting your case to upper management that you should spend this money, that this is valuable, that these are, just like you're saying, those communication skills are incredibly important. And to answer the question was, what do I feel about that? I'm nervous for it, right? And I want the instructors to ensure that communication in this current working environment is still being, the student still gets practice in communicating effectively in this environment, because it is so important once you make it into a corporate environment.
Chris.
Hey, Evan.
Yes.
Evan, it's Tim.
Yes.
I agree with what Justin said, but I think that, you know, if you're speaking either in a room, in person, or at a table, or you're speaking on a WebEx or something like that, one, you will have with a WebEx, I mean, it's sort of one to many, whereas in a conference room, I don't know how many times I've seen people on their phones or things like that, which is still possible with a WebEx, but you sort of got the direct interaction and it's still the message. It's still going to be organization, presentation. I think in the online space, there's going to have to be more fluency with the online tools. I mean, there's nothing that throws off a presentation like technical glitches. So certainly, you know, being able to effectively use online tools like, you know, WebEx or whatever it is, or share screens or things like that. That's where there's a lot of challenge. So that's definitely a technical piece. But you still have to be able to communicate and organize your thoughts and articulate it. And that's going to be true whether you're standing in the room with somebody or on the phone with somebody or in a WebEx or something like that, where they're either seeing your face or seeing your presentation. So I think it was important before, it's important now. I think there are more challenges with the online space, and conceivably, I think somebody either on the chat room or you know, during the comments mentioned something about specific training for the online environment, and a fluency in online tools is going to be helpful and set you apart. You know, it's just like marketing. If you have a great, seamless, flawless, smooth, organized presentation, you're going to get a positive response. If you're in the room or if you're online, I would argue if you're online, it's even more focused.
All right, Chris, you're up next. And just FYI, we do have a few other things that we'd like to get to, but Laura and I really, this conversation is pretty deep and rich and very relevant. So let's keep going. Let's not stop. Chris.
Thanks, Evan. I just wanted to second what Justin was saying about those communication skills and how valuable they are. I find it interesting that there was even a vote on something like public speaking at one point in time. My husband works in IT and has for years, and as a hiring manager has always talked about that people with tech skills are a dime a dozen. And you can find just about anybody who can do that technical part of the job, but having the people skills, those soft skills, so communication, being able to convey your idea, as Tim was talking about, is still going to be incredibly, that's what sets the people apart. It's, he refers to it as you can be a geek with people skills. And that's the part that's going to bridge that gap. And to further what Tim was saying, I think that these types of online environments are still going to be very beneficial to our students because they're learning a different set of important communication skills. As we move to more distributed office environments where people may be working from home or working from a remote office, that knowing how to use tools that incorporate chat and video conferencing and the ability to share a screen, those are going to be really important tools, I think, in our near future and maybe even our long-term future.
All right, thank you, Chris. Any other thoughts here? Again, we're agenda people. We plan our days, we plan our work, but sometimes they get sidetracked by things that are more important. So if anybody else has something that they would like to discuss.
Laura, and I'm going to jump in with a preview of what I was going to talk about. I think you can see my screen. And so, hang on, I can't see my other. Anyway, so they talk about this as T-shaped skills. It was a new, I guess, moniker for it, but it's what we're all talking about, that this ability to have a big picture, this cross-disciplinary of skills, attitudes, as opposed to soft skills, but just saying that they want graduates with T-shaped skills. So, yep, the ability, skills, attitudes, as well as that depth of learning with knowledge and expertise. I think that's what I'm hearing people talk about here.
Dane, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm just curious if we can go back and just get a little bit more discussion or maybe a clarification from Greg Brodt on his comment about students coming up and making a comment to him. I'd like to know what that really meant.
So I'm looking at potential students being hires and how employers are going to handle that process as this pandemic goes on. Well, that's my main interest in it, and maybe from instructor point of view, how can we help prepare them together? It kind of ties in with that socialization, communication.
Okay, thanks, Greg.
Any of the employers out there want to, I'm sure you folks have been thinking about this. Certainly, Michael, when you were talking about what you folks are doing at Wipfli with the hiring of these people and they're working at home right away, how are you, how related to this comment or these comments here? What about Wipfli? How are they dealing with that?
Yeah, I don't know. Can you explain the part about what would you like me to touch on, I guess? You're on mute, Evan.
Yeah, I am. I'm that rookie. Yep, I haven't done this too much.
We did hear the damn though.
All views expressed by me, you can throw out the window. Greg, would you repeat your question again, just so Michael can kind of grab that bit?
So from an instructor point of view, preparing students for going out for the jobs, what should they expect in terms of the process? Are they going to be expecting online interviews, going through the hiring process online, onboarding, and being prepared to work from their home online? What's kind of the expectation there?
I think yes. I think all that straight out. I mean, we're on the IT side. We're like, can't we get them to at least come and pick up their computers? No, we're sending those to them as well. I mean, it's tough because there's a belief, especially in accounting, that you need to be around those people. You need to allow them to ask questions and stuff. But at the same point, our firm we threw all of our phone systems out, which we had a bunch through M&A. We're fully Teams Voice. That's all we have. That's our only phones is Teams Voice. That was planned for the last year, but went live in April or May. So, I mean, I think people now are figuring out that I may be able to actually help people better through chat and messaging and writing KB articles and recording things in stream. So I think it's going to be an interesting experience because the technology that we're using in business seems to fit more than ever with the technology that people are used to coming out of college. So I think there's a perception that it's going to be a bigger challenge than it's going to be, but the reality of it, at least in our world, is it's going to be remote and virtual, and we're going to make the most of it. And so far, so good.
Thank you, Michael. That triggered a few hands going up there. Dave, you were the first one, and after that, I'm not sure.
So, Greg, I've gone through this firsthand as an interviewee the last couple of years, and just as leading up to that, I've worked remotely out of my home office for the last 6 years, and probably have interviewed many times from my home office, and have not actually ever gone in to a corporate office for a final interview. Everything has been done remotely, whether it's through the phone, through Zoom. Positions that I've taken, a week after I've accepted it, I got an office in a box where I've got multiple computers, monitors, laptops, headsets, whatever that may be. They've helped supply my home office with what I would need if I was working at a regular office. So I would say to better prepare students for what that interview process, that onboarding process could look like is, phone skills, Zoom, WebEx skills, being able to do virtual interviews along those lines. And, kind of going back to it, you've done learning via remote in a hybrid source. That's what it's going to look like, whether you're onboarding, having to fill out paperwork, everything has been done remotely. So what they're going through today is going to be what it's going to look like moving forward.
All right, Monica, I think you were next. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just going to second, excuse me, a lot of the things that are being said, but I think we're in a digital transformation and culture shift as a whole for the world. And like enterprise software moving to the cloud, we've been doing that for a while, but you're going to see a lot more of work from anywhere, digital headquarters. You're going to, and not the physical headquarters that we've seen in the past. And a lot of us in some industries have been working remotely and digitally for a while, but this is going to shift culturally across all businesses and industries, having teams work more virtually, like your sales, marketing, IT. And so I think these conversations are really good to have, especially with kind of preparing these students for what's ahead of them.
You're on mute again, Evan.
You didn't see what I said that time. Justin, go.
Sure. I like what Michael said to answer Greg's question. It was the perception. I think this is the right quote, is the perception's a little bit worse than what the reality is, right? So it's going to be online to everything, and it's not going to be that bad. My first thought when I wrote that down was the interviewee, the student should ask the question to the employer, what is your onboarding experience going to look like? And a healthy environment will have an answer, a good answer, right? If you don't get a good answer of, well, we think we'll just send you a laptop and you'll just join our meetings or your stand-ups and you'll be off. Maybe that's not the right environment for you. Maybe if they have a really thought out plan of, you're going to partner with somebody for a while and you're going to learn our culture this way, that would be something that if I were interviewing, I would be asking those types of questions.
Monica, I still see your hand up. Go.
I need to put my hand down, sorry.
Okay, that's all right. If we don't have at least one of those per meeting, then we haven't done anything. All right, that's good. Wow, folks, this conversation has been fantastic, and I am glad that we are recording this because I think there are some people that could really hear these perspectives, including our leadership, that certainly at this time in our history are trying to make decisions that do fit for what the future is in our practice, and certainly serving business and industry. That's one thing about UW-Stout that all of you, I think, have been impressed with, is that we are very career focused in that sense. So anybody else? Gosh, I don't even know where to go from here. I mean, we do have some other business items, but if you folks, Justin, is your hand up again? Or is your hand just not down? Yeah, there.
Teams was removing it when you talked, but now it's not.
All right.
It's my fault. I actually jumped in and lowered hands as people were talking. Wow. If I could ask a question of the group is maybe by the end of our meeting today, if you could contribute a couple key thoughts to pass along to executive leadership at Stout in the messaging area, that would be helpful because that would make it easier to cut and paste messages moving forward.
Yes, and by the way, for those people that have been contributing to the chat, thank you so much. That it's kind of one of those interesting discoveries as we transition from doing business face-to-face and having meetings like this to being in this environment. It's not only the recorded audio and video, it's this amazing chat that you can essentially keep. And by the way, I'm going to need some help with that from somebody after the meeting because I don't quite know how to do that yet, but I do know how to record. All right. Matt, did we have any more questions that were sitting? Oh, we got a hand up. Dane, go.
Yeah, so I thought that, I think it was Justin that was talking about that. Maybe it started with Monica, but one of the things that I think is really interesting, we bring in at our gymnastics training center 12 to 15 different school districts per day. Some of them as far away as an hour, students, and up to 200 kids. So I get one perspective from that side in terms of all the different schools and what they're doing to prepare the kids or to adjust to online. Some of the kids are doing AP online, some are doing other things. Get a pretty good perspective there. On the flip side of that, I still have 5 companies. And I just sold one IT company this last year after 30 years. And one of the things that I'm hearing from businesses out there is based on the fact that they're struggling with how to deal with the pandemic and all the other challenges that they're wrestling with, going online, et cetera, is that there are a lot of those companies that are turning into a toxic environment. The ability for leadership to be able to deal with all the changes and or people coming in or going, or the remote employees has contributed to that, evidently. So I thought it was interesting that, you know, we're talking about all the changes and so forth, but one of those aspects is, and I still hear it and I see it every single day, is people just want to know that their leadership cares, right? And so too often we talk about technical incompetencies, but we forget about the character piece. And so based on what I'm seeing and hearing from all these school districts and what the kids are giving me feedback on, what other businesses are giving me feedback on is we need to get back to a place where we still lead with character. So I just wanted to point that out because I think it's a great segue into what the last couple of speakers were saying. Thanks.
Thank you, Dane. Yeah, that's an area right now when I think about our environment, our organization, morale is not good. And it isn't just because work is harder because of a pandemic. I think we've had historically an issue with being able to create an environment where people did feel valued amongst many different variables that contribute to an environment like a university. I'm not sure how much we want to go down that rabbit hole in this, but I guess at this point we're way off agenda, so who cares? Let's keep talking about those things that are actually relevant, because this has been great. This has been great conversation. And so, anybody else want to chime in on anything? All right, well, that's the only long, awkward pause we'll have in this meeting then. And I guess we will move on. Again, I just want to thank you folks. This has been probably one of the best advisory meetings that I have been a part of, just to hear from our advisory board, the people, you folks, who have taken time to be able to contribute to the ways of thinking, which, you know, what you say to us informs our thinking and our actions. Very, very helpful. And this has been a fun meeting to be a part of versus a lot of them we've had lately. I guess with that being said, we can transition into the rest of our agenda. We do have 30 minutes that we have allotted. Whether we use them all or not, that remains to be seen. But let's go ahead and just take a little bit of time here. I see that we had a little bit of a communication snafu in the background. None of us know where our meeting minutes are from our last advisory meeting, so we're going to just skip that unless somebody, well, we're going to skip that. I'll make the executive call on that. Let's look at program numbers. Sara Anger is the support for both the BS and the MS ICT program. She is officially the UW-Stout Adult Student Services Coordinator. And I'd like to pass it on to Sara just to talk about the numbers, the results as far as who we have in our program, where that fits with the past and where the future might be. So Sara is ahead of me as she usually is, so go ahead and take it away.
All right, I won't take up too much time, but I just wanted to highlight, the program directors have received a nice infographic that shows all the demographics and data that I collect each fall term. But here I just wanted to show historical data and what data we have for our fall 2020 population. So you can see, hopefully it's large enough. You can see for fall, as far as demographics go, we're staying pretty consistent as far as average age, the percentage of our online bachelors of ICT, that 80% are part-time, which is no surprise. Our GPA is staying pretty consistent with historical data there. And what other? Another thing that the university really looks at is retention numbers, and we look at retention numbers, the number of students from semester to semester for the online program, because students are stopping out and doing whatever works for them. And so we are at 96% retention rate, which is awesome. We look to be at least 75%. And so that is a good show number there. The thing that Evan wanted me to point out regarding spring 2021, as he's already indicated, our numbers for this coming spring seem to be pretty stable. So if we look at fall, we had 75 current students. For spring, we're looking at 85, or a potential of 85 students registering. And at this point, we have 52 students who have registered, and this is comparable to this time period last fall. So I am confident, and Evan, I think, would say the same, that our numbers for spring are looking pretty good as far as the online population. I do also have a snapshot of what spring should be turning out for the campus-based ICT program. So again, looking at fall numbers and what our projected numbers are for spring, we are on target and staying stable. We don't foresee a decrease unless something drastically changes within the next 7 weeks. But those are our campus numbers as well. And again, as far as demographics for on-campus students, it's very similar to the numbers I shared last spring as far as average age, how many are going part-time, how many credits they're taking per semester, and that sort of information. Let me see if I can bring
Sara,
up, oh, go ahead.
I just want to jump in here a second. Earlier in our meeting, Chris Isaacson, who is the program director for digital marketing technology, had mentioned fall 2021 as having this spike up related to on-campus students. ICT, for the first time in its history, is also experiencing that kind of thing. And I think it's an issue of the word is getting out about what ICT is. And I also think we also had some people that decided just simply not to come to campus this fall based on our pandemic environment. But it's very strange for me to see that we have double digits of 18-year-old freshmen coming to campus specifically for ICT. So again, will that continue? You know, we don't know. For right now, it's probably related to the environment we're in.
Thank you. And then I just wanted to touch on the master's program. So data, again, I have a historical spreadsheet. You can see there for this fall, we had number of continuing students was 21. We had received 18 applicants for the program for this fall, and of those applicants, 11 actually started. And Laura may give more of an update on those numbers. And again, our demographics are looking similar to what we've experienced in the past as far as our average age, grade point averages, and where our students are coming from. Looking at this coming spring, the graduate school puts out a report every Monday, and as of this last Monday, there were 4 applicants received, and of those 4 applicants, 3 have been admitted at this point as of Monday, and 1 student has registered. And looking at our current student population numbers, we will have 28 students able to register for spring, and of those 28, 21 are already registered. And when I say we have 28 students able to register, I have taken out the students who are graduating. And our graduation numbers for this fall, we have 4 Masters of ICT students graduating. We have 9 undergrad ICT online students graduating, and 5 ICT campus students graduating. So Evan or Laura, you can go ahead and fill in with whichever information you need to.
Let me unmute my mic and just say, as far as where the BS ICT program is, I feel pretty good at where it is right now. I think we are stable, and we're actually seeing some evidence of maybe some growth. I think in this pandemic season, people have been pressed to come back to school. We've often seen more people come back to school when the economy tanks. This has been an odd year for that. I mean, I suppose with all the politics that have been going on and such, that's been an influence, but the economy, quite honestly, has not tanked, at least if you watch the stock market and think that as a barometer of overall health. But I think we're in a good spot. Yeah, so that's BS ICT.
I can, just in terms of her numbers, we do struggle to kind of meet that 15, which is the target enrollment. Sarah and I worked really hard over the summer to get it up to 11, and we met that 11 by day 10. But then what happened immediately afterwards is 4 students withdrew because of all sorts of valid reasons in terms of that. So, it's a pretty fluctuating, fluid number that we're always chasing down.
All right. So with that being said, looking at where the program is numerically at this point, if any of the advisory members would like to jump in and make any comments about that, fine. If not, the remainder of our time today, we're going to transition. There's a couple things up there that I had on there about cooperative learning experiences, and quite honestly, I've already had the questions answered. It's a transition time for those, but Laura's been working on some things with the MS program, and I want to make sure that she has time to share with you and you folks to speak back into it. So with that being said, Laura, whatever you want to do the rest of the way, it is yours.
All right. So yeah, I've just prepared several hours worth of PowerPoints here, so I hope you can all stay. I'm just kidding. Obviously I'm going to truncate it though, in terms of, because I want to get to what's really important, and that's hearing some feedback. So I can, package this and go through some other stuff. So I would like to get to, let me see here. Micro credentials. That's what I would like to talk about, partly because I am part of a subcommittee that is exploring graduate micro credentials. And my first set of questions are for anybody to jump in is, do you know what they are? Have you heard of them? Are there any of these in your workplace? I think they've also been called stackable credentials.
Maybe
go ahead.
Laura, you could just give an explanation of what you feel they are.
Sure, and I can go to that. I just thought I'd start out cold to kind of see what I got. So micro credentials are really very small. They're very specific. Couple of courses, but it also can be a whole program that's broken down into micro credentials. It is used to upskill or retrain existing workers. It can be used to supplement existing knowledge with new complementary, and it can provide a new access point to higher education for those who need this advanced degree. It's part of what I believe, and why I like everything coming together in the graduate school, is that I think we need to package this differently. I think it needs to be timed differently. We currently produce all of our programs and certificates based on our academic world, which is not the real world. And so I think we need to package them differently. I think we need to provide easier access points so they can not make a 2-year commitment, but they can start out with it. It gained traction for me for the master's program because it was quite inadvertent that we discovered students who had completed an e-learning certificate, which was 15 credits, could be their emphasis area, and they are 1 year away from a master's program. And I picked up 4 students, 1 starting this semester and 3 coming in next semester, who have just 1 year to go to complete their master's. That's a little easier sell. You're halfway there. And so I really like this idea of these micro credentials that can be packaged and clustered, that personalized, customized, and in smaller bite-sized pieces that allow it to, continue to be very relevant and meaningful. It's where I showed earlier this T-shaped skills. So these credentials can be ways to demonstrate what I think are really hard things to demonstrate. So please document that you show persistence, show that you have great communication skills, show that you are able to moderate and influence and cooperate, show that you can do those kinds of things. So I am interested, and that's why I kind of jumped to the middle of this, because I really would like some feedback about this. So these micro credentials from business and industry, do you value them? Are they recognized? There's a lot of questions here. And so let me put them out there, and then we can kind of open it up, right? How do you communicate these to your employees? Will you help pay for that? How can we get in on that? Meaning Stout, how do we help get this message out? And bottom line that I'm looking for is, if anybody, wants to talk more about that, I'm looking to kind of pilot and gather some more research into this area. So I'm going to be quiet for a second and leave my questions up and see if anybody else can jump in.
Go ahead, Monica.
I had to unmute, sorry. So in our industry, we call them paths. So depending on where you want to go in the workforce, there are a series of certifications or trainings you have to do to get down that path to be qualified in that area, to be workforce ready. So and it's a bunch of, a multitude of certifications that lead to the end, and there's prerequisites, of course, and all that kind of thing. So depending on if it's like development, like programming, architecture, the data side of it, being on the end user admin side of it, or what have you, all those paths look very different, and the certifications look very different. And then there's also specialty certifications you can get. So like if you're in security, system security and that kind of thing, cybersecurity type pieces, you can get enhanced certifications specifically in that area to become like an expert in that field.
Monica, Monica, would you ever outsource any of that? It sounds all of your training is done in-house, correct? All of these credentials and paths, are they all, in-house, or do you, maybe it's
No, well, because my industry, Salesforce, right? So Salesforce has a whole structure around all of that, and they kind of facilitate those exams and that training. But you can also do a lot of self-based training in what we call Trailhead. And if you're a business and you're using the Salesforce platform, you can also create custom trails for onboarding new employees, training certain roles within your organization. So you can actually integrate what Salesforce has already put together in conjunction with your training materials in-house as well. So I don't know if that answered your question or not.
No, thank you. Yep. I see a hand up for an initial.
Yep. So I think that in the IT space, this has been going on for a long time. I put a comment in the chat about this as well, but we oftentimes will refer to them as industry credentials or industry certification. And usually it involves passing a certification test that's a proctored exam by one of the major testing centers like Pearson VUE. And so Microsoft, Cisco, obviously in the IT space, have been doing this for a long time. So as a college, we participate in this a little bit as well. Mostly the way that we choose to do that is that we offer academic certificates, which are 12 to 15 credits worth of work that kind of align with some of those as a way to provide training. And then we also do it through our continuing education, workforce development, customized training side of the college as well. But it certainly exists. Usually there is a lot of competition from for-profit training providers in that space for those highly recognized kind of standardized credentials, at least. I personally don't know of any companies that kind of do like a or recognize a non-standard, like a non-industry standard micro-credential or stackable credential.
So if I could jump in on that, what you're saying is that, and yep, Pearson VUE credentials, get that, Cisco, all of those, in order to get these then kind of recognized, right, would be where we would want to work with business and industry to ensure that it is meeting their needs, that this is not a, it's not as cut and dried as getting your MOS certification or your Cisco kind of thing. It's certainly more of that academic side, but smaller and meant to be competency, skill-based, demonstrable. But how do we begin to, get some inroads, and how do we decide what to start with and where we can, begin to help meet the needs of, what can we help fill that are gaps, that are areas of saying, yeah, we got those computer skills, but gosh, it'd be nice to have one on, I don't know, negotiating, something a little trickier.
Yeah, I think that the challenge there is that it's, unless there's a large industry consortium kind of group that's behind kind of what the curriculum for that credential looks like, it's a little hard to get that recognized by a number of employers.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's the challenge, is what is then seen as valuable, what is seen as recognized as, oh, this is a good thing, and they know what that is. I think that's part of our challenge. I see hand up with Kristen.
Yes, I just kind of wanted to jump off of that. Instead of, I think, focusing specifically on the kind of industry specific technology types of credentialing, your Cisco credentialing, this sort of thing, is that it might be better to look at other types of areas that would be beneficial. For example, thinking out of my digital marketing area, one of the things that Kevin Tharp and I have thrown around is, even though our web technology certificate didn't go over very well, and I think it was because it was too broad, that instead, if we did something like a search engine optimization micro-credential, like you come in, you take a couple classes, maybe on analytics and search engine optimization, that now isn't anything that's tied to any specific industry, but it's something that people could take away and add it to, maybe they're working in a marketing capacity in their company or something, that then they could add this and say, okay, now I'm more prepared to go out and we can do some other online promotions and I have some tools in my tool belt. I think it might be a different way of looking at this versus I know how to do Cisco servers or other sorts of specific, those types of setups. That makes sense.
Yeah, and I agree, Krista, because we can't compete with Pearson VUE. They've got the lockdown on every proctored exam that's out there. So we're not going to be able to do that. But what can we help? You know, what becomes certainly transferable? What becomes part of my thoughts is in this, I know, pie in the sky graduate school that I want to be a part of, is that there are cross-disciplinary credentials. So maybe there's one in research, maybe, and that credential applies to 17 majors that are graduates. Maybe there's a little micro in, you know, other areas that I think are harder to quantify. This won't compete. I totally agree with you, though. It won't compete with, I'm not going to certify you know how to do Excel.
Well, and I'm just thinking within the ICT MS degree and knowing some of the areas where you're thinking about taking this kind of long term, is there anything in micro-credentials that might deal more with certain IT, like leadership skills? That now you can walk away and say, I have these types of skills, and it's mostly a resume builder, right? Or something to take to their employer if they're looking for a promotion or taking on some additional responsibility to say, okay, I know how to analyze trends now in the IT field, and just throwing some thoughts out there.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the cross-disciplinary attitude, right? How do you show cooperation? Tim, let me let you jump in. You had your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. Just something to consider, and it's not something you have to do, but in the privacy space, there's a greater emphasis on privacy engineering. Carnegie Mellon just created sort of a sub study or sub focus area. The California law that was recently passed a month ago, and some of the industry, the Association of National Advertisers, the Digital Advertising Alliance, the IAB Transparency and Consent Framework are very technology based, consent management, things like that. So I learned on the mention of digital advertising. And so, you know, there will be credentialing, or there will be technologies, either proprietary or industry, that focus on privacy, capturing pixels, cookies, consents, things like that. So if there's a niche area that is definitely exploding, especially when California implements the law, they've created a new state agency, and that's going to drive the rest of the country. So just something to consider as you're planning for future emphasis.
Oh, that's really interesting. No, thank you for sharing that. Deanna.
Laura, just really quick, I wanted to share, I just experienced this with the student. So we have our Cte Leadership Certificate that really is just a few courses we already had that we packaged, right, for a certain audience. But this is a student who was in my master's program, right, for leadership. I'm like, well, you're going to have that. But he wants a certificate because it shows up on the transcript, right? I mean, it specifically says Cte Leadership, right? And they want that on the, so keep that in mind, right? As you think about your certificates and what they are, then they'll have that on their, it's not just the degree, it's the specific area that they kind of have some skills in too, that can be a benefit then as they go out, you know, seeking job. If employers see that and go, or they can highlight it, right, and say.
Yeah, I agree. It becomes part of the tool that whether it's an emphasis area or a minor, that this becomes the certificate, which certainly demonstrates some area of expertise for that. Tim, did you want back in, or was that still a hand up? Aha.
Oh, sorry, I'll drop my hand.
Nope, that's all good. You never know here on on that. Same thing with Chris. Are you wanting back in? Aha, hands go up. Sarah.
I guess I'd just like to add kind of the conversations that Laura and I have been hearing from students. It seems like there's a trend where graduate students are coming in and understanding they have to take the 15 credits of core courses for the program. But then when it comes to the 15 credits of elective courses or emphasis area, they're really driven by what courses they take based on their professional goals. And so we are starting to see more and more students ask us, oh, I see this course over here. And for example, user experience course, it'll fit with my program plan or my professional plan, or I see this course over here with leadership in, say, Deanna Schultz's area with the career and tech industry. So we are just experiencing more and more students wanting to hand pick those 15 credits to meet what they are looking for professionally. And if we, and again, I might be speaking too much, but if we start to see themes with students wanting certain bunches of courses, when they go to industry, how does industry perceive those kind of hand-picked courses or degrees?
So are you asking, like, does it matter then that we label it as a certificate? Does that add any credibility to the fact that, oh, these were just areas of emphasis and a handful of courses that they picked, right?
Correct. Yes.
So as far as business and industry, you know, and as Deanna was saying, so it shows up on the credential as a certificate. Does that, I don't know, does business and industry care about that? Does that have any extra weight, any way to differentiate them in terms of employment? Tim, do you want in?
Wow, I can't seem to drop my pesky hand, huh?
That's okay. I just don't want to leave it out there. There we go. Now it is dropped. No. And now you'll have something to say, right? Well, I see by the clock, you know, there's two minutes left here, and I certainly want to be respectful of everyone's time that you've generously given us for this. And so I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I may reach out with some other things, but we look forward to more ways to partner with you, more ways to help you, which in turn helps us to continue to provide relevant and meaningful education that gets students their next job, for Evan, their first job. But so I thank everyone for all their feedback on this, and I'll let Evan.
All right, well, we are again at the top of the hour, and we want to honor your time, and we want to just say thank you again for what you've provided us today. This is, quite honestly, this is one of those conversations for me that is very refreshing to have. It's nice to know that we're not alone, first of all, and it's nice to know all the creativity that is occurring to be able to adapt to, frankly, a new way of doing what we do, and it's across the board. So just a couple things business-wise. I am recording this, and I'm going to make this available through a private means, YouTube, so everybody can go back and look at that as you desired. It's kind of like we're in an evolution right now of capturing this feedback. This is a great way of doing it versus taking endless notes that we think we interpreted correctly. There's a lot of meaning in this. So thank you. We will certainly reconvene again since these are biannual get-togethers. The next one will be in May, in spring, when it's not winter. Won't that be nice? So anyways, thank you so much for your time today. Have a very good holiday season, and take some time out and be with family, because if you're able. So anyways, take care, everybody. Have a good day. As the people drop off one by one. I tell you, this is a lot easier to run these kind of meetings versus actually filling a room at a university, at our university, and feeding them all. I'd feed everybody here, just so you know.
That's the only thing that dinner and camaraderie of just sitting around is definitely lacking with. But man, if we had this many sidebar chats, we wouldn't have gotten anywhere if we were all sitting together. So
yeah, no kidding. No
anyway,
kidding.
Nice meeting you both. I have to go to another meeting.
All right, Deb.
Thank you.
For participating.
Okay. Have a good day.
You too.
All right, so I think that leaves me and Laura and Matt Wysocki.
I think it does.
Hey, Matt, turn on your camera a second, would you?
I think because this is not my meeting, I don't see an option. I know I've seen at some point to export the